Hi everyone. I want to take a couple of minutes just to talk about my favorite topic, which is fat. So I'll give you an overview of fat and why we should embrace it rather than fear it. So dietary fat, as mentioned in the macronutrient overview, has a very significant role in the body, assuming that it's good fat. So it plays a role in brain health and hormone balance and fat metabolism. So it actually helps to break down other fats. And it allows for good cholesterol or HDL to remain higher than LDL and bad cholesterol. So if you're not getting enough good fat from your diet, then your cholesterol could actually increase. And consuming good fat doesn't automatically mean that it will turn into body fat. So let me just say that again. Dietary fat does not equal body fat. It's not that simple. There are so many other functions that fat has in the body, and fat storage is just one of them, and that's only if several other conditions exist, and we will talk about that too. So dietary fat does not equal body fat. Okay, so let's talk about good fat versus bad fat. So the good fats are those that are from real foods, they're naturally found in nature, they're from plants and animals, they're unprocessed or minimally processed, and they are included in foods such as coconut, olives, walnuts, other kinds of nuts, avocado, and heavy cream. So you can eat these foods fresh, you can have them in oils or a butter. So nut butter or butter from cream, those kinds of things. So bad fats are those that are man-made or man-manipulated, such as trans fats, refined. So anything that says refined on the label is typically a manipulated fat. And vegetable oils like canola, corn, and safflower. And we'll get into why these are bad fats. But for now, just know that they're bad. All right, so let's talk about essential fatty acids. Essential means that our body cannot produce them on their own, so we need to get them from our diet, and they are essential to our body's optimum health. They play a role in blood clotting and inflammation. And examples of essential fatty acids are omega-3s, omega-6s, and there's also omega-9s, which are not as common. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. They reduce the risk of heart disease, improve mental disorders such as depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. And then omega-6s, on the other hand, are pro-inflammatory. So they increase the risk of heart disease and increase the risk of mental disorders. So the ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s is very important. We need a little bit of omega-6s because some inflammation is healthy. It helps us with injury, it helps us get through stressful times, and we need a lot of omega-3s to offset all of that inflammation. So typically a ratio between 2-to-1 and 4-to-1 is a healthy goal to shoot for. So that's what the hunter-gatherer's diet was actually. And then the Inuits, which had a very seafood-based diet, their ratio was 1-to-4. So they had 1 omega-6 for every 4 omega-3s. So there's a lot of omega-3s in their diet. The Western diet has a ratio of 16-to-1. So that's a very, very inflammatory, pro-inflammatory diet. If you have 16 omega-6s for every 1 omega-3, you don't have enough omega-3s to offset that inflammation that's going on in the body. So what you can do is you can eat plenty of seafood, and you can eat grass-fed meat, or you can take an essential fatty acid supplement like omega-3s, fish oil, cod liver oil, and one that I recommend is krill oil because it's lower on the food chain and therefore there's less chance of having that those toxins accumulate. And toxins in the ocean, actually, like mercury, accumulate in the fatty tissues of fish. And so when you isolate that fish oil, you don't want to have all of those toxins in that supplement. So that's why I recommend krill oil, because it's lower on the food chain. So to continue with the essential fatty acids discussion, I wanted to show this figure, which shows different dietary fats and their respective fatty acid content. So it shows saturated fat in red, omega-9s in yellow, which we don't have to worry about for now, omega-3s in orange, and omega-6s in blue. So what we want to look for is that proper ratio. So we don't want to have a lot of omega-6s with a little bit of omega-3s. We want to have the reverse of that. We want to have a lot of omega-3s and a little bit of omega-6s. So those ones that have a proper ratio are safflower oil, flaxseed oil, olive oil, lard, palm oil, butterfat, and coconut oil. And those ratios range from about 1:3 to 1:8. And you don't want to get any more than 8. And then on the flip side, if we look at the ones that have a very unhealthy ratio and those that are more in alignment with the Western diet ratio, is canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, and cottonseed oil. So we want to do everything that we can, and sunflower oil is also on that list. We want to do everything that we can to avoid those. Typically, it's tough to avoid them because typically restaurants will use these oils, and a lot of different processed foods use these oils, and everything that you find in the grocery store usually has these oils. So that's another case to make for cooking everything at home. Okay, so let's move on to grass-fed animal products, because grass-fed animal products are much healthier than grain-fed animal products, and here's why. Cows and other ruminant animals are not meant to graze on grass. They're meant to graze on grass. They're not meant to graze on grain. So, when cows graze on grass rather than being fed grain, their meat and their milk are lower in saturated fat. They have 3 to 5 times more CLA, which is a fatty acid known to fight cancer. They have 3 to 5 times more vitamin E. They have an optimal ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. And to give you a comparison, grass-fed meat and milk has a ratio of 3:1, which is one of those healthier, in that healthy range. And then the grain-fed actually has a ratio of 20:1, which is more like that Western diet. And that's a very pro-inflammatory type of diet. Grass-fed meat and milk also is higher in trace minerals, beta-carotene, antioxidants, and vitamins. So it's much more nutritious for you than grain-fed meat or milk. So you want to consume grass-fed butter, grass-fed milk, and grass-fed meat whenever possible. All right, so let's touch on coconut oil. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I showed the figure of all the different oils on the left with their respective fat contents, coconut oil had a very high saturated fat content. And that saturated fat is naturally occurring. And one thing that I want to say about saturated fat is there's been no scientific evidence to show that naturally occurring saturated fat is harmful. There has been a lot of evidence to show that non-naturally occurring saturated fat is harmful. So saturated fat that's naturally occurring promotes heart health, promotes weight loss, immune system health, a healthy metabolism, healthy skin and hair, and thyroid health. Coconut oil also contains lauric acid, which in itself is antiviral and antibacterial. So coconut oil can actually help to fight against viruses such as the flu virus, measles, herpes, and HIV. Coconut oil also contains medium-chain fatty acids, or MCTs. So this causes coconut oil to be solid at room temperature, but slightly above room temperature as liquid. So MCTs, unlike long-chain fatty acids, or long-chain triglycerides, which is what the T stands for, can permeate cell membranes easier than longer chains. MCTs are much more easily digested than long chains, and MCTs are sent directly to the liver and converted to energy right away rather than stored as fat first. So coconut oil can actually help stimulate the body's metabolism and can actually lead to weight loss, which is something that you don't really think about when you think about consuming a fat, but coconut oil really does help with that. So coconut oil can be used to cook with or bake with, and I say at low temperatures because at high temperatures, say like 350 and above, the coconut oil actually starts to break down and the integrity and the nutrition is lost. So if you do cook or bake with it, try and keep it at a relatively low temperature. There are other better oils for high temperature. You can also use coconut oil as part of your beauty routines because it's a very good moisturizer. And since it fights against bacteria and viruses, it can also be used as a cleaner. So let's recap. You got to eat fat to burn fat. And dietary fat does not equal body fat. Fat is your friend. Don't fear it. You age faster without enough dietary fat. So make sure you're getting enough in order to preserve your cells for as long as possible. Not enough fat initiates the stress response. So a deficiency in fat causes stress. Your organs, every single organ in your body needs fat to function. And don't forget quality over quantity when it comes to fat. So that basically means don't worry about counting calories to an extent if the fat is from a natural plant or animal source. So that means you can eat bacon, you can eat butter, you can eat sausage if it's from a good quality, high quality, clean source. So you can eat all those things, but then quantity comes into play because you don't want to eat a whole plate of bacon, but a couple of pieces is fine. So your homework is to aim to eat a serving of fat at every meal, and the oil that you use to cook with doesn't count. So maybe at breakfast you have 1 to 2 pieces of bacon, and then at lunch you top your salad with olive oil, and then for dinner you have half an avocado, something like that. So aim to have at least 1 serving of fat at every single meal. If you're active, you can probably bump that up to 2 servings of fat at every single meal. But play around with it, see what works best for you. I think what you'll find is you'll have more energy and you'll be less hungry throughout the day, and you might even avoid that mid-afternoon slump. So that's all I have for today. Thanks.